Welcome to the WIHS Journal. On the broadcast today, we'll hear from the owner of Fruit in Its Season Wealth Management, Aston Blake. Stay tuned for all the details. Well, today in the WIHS studio, we are blessed again to have Aston Blake. He is the owner of Fruit in Its Season Wealth Management, assisting the body of Christ by presenting biblically based financial education seminars at your church and providing retirement planning services for your pastor, for you in the church, or actually for anyone, giving a great Christian advice. I love how we were just sitting here for the last 20 minutes talking about things of the Lord and fellowshipping. That's how you know it's a brother in the Lord. I know this is the second time you're here at WIHS. Great to have you back.
Well, thanks for having me. Good to be back.
Thank you so much for taking the drive. For our listeners, talk about how you came up with the name Fruit in Its Season Wealth Management.
Yeah, that name came straight from the Lord. It came out of Psalms 1. Many of you out there listening are familiar with Psalms 1. It says, walk not in the counsel of the ungodly. So, that was one of the areas that I felt it's important to be given Christian and biblical financial support for people to understand from a biblical standpoint how their finances should be. And then if you go to Psalms 1, verse 3, it says, he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water that brings forth its fruit in its season, whose leaf also shall not wither, and whatever he does shall prosper. So that's where you hear the name right there in verse 3 of Psalms 1. Yeah, that was the inspiration straight from the Holy Spirit.
So the last time you were in here, I believe it was last year. Tell us what transpired, what changes, and what God is doing since then.
Yeah, God has been moving mightily. I've been in the financial services arena for over 30 years. I've stepped into really supporting ministers and pastors here in the New England region through Guardian Financial Group as an independent agent under Guardian Financial Group. During this time, I've gotten a lot of momentum. I've gone to a lot of conferences that are Christian conferences where there are pastors, helping pastors to understand all of their unique finances when it comes to retirement planning and building for retirement, and then, taking money out in retirement and doing the right things using their unique benefits.
And last time I remember what kind of caught my attention, you're doing it in a way so it's tax-free.
That's right. So ministers are very unique, pastors are very unique, and they have benefits like no one else in this country. They are the only ones who can put money into a retirement plan with zero taxes, so tax deferred. Most of us put our money into a secular 401k or a 403b, for example, if you're a teacher. And when you put your money in there, it's tax deferred, no federal, no state tax, but it still has Social Security taken out of it before it goes in. That's not the case with a pastor. So they can put their money in totally tax deferred, but the will within the will for a pastor is that when they take their money out in retirement, they can also take it all out tax free if they can justify it as minister's housing allowance, but they have to do it in the right type of retirement plan.
Wow, that is so great. What would you like pastors to know regarding their finances, especially where they are today?
That's a really good one. So I want pastors to know, for one, there's hope regarding their financial situations. And I say it that way because as I'm on this journey, there are a lot of pastors out there who either are not saving for retirement or they don't understand their benefits as it relates to retirement. There's Dr. Richard Hammer. He wrote Church Law and Tax. It's a good book for all of those who are in ministry, pastors or board members, probably about a 400 page book. A lot of what we teach and educate pastors on comes out of that book. And Dr. Hammer wrote an article, I think it was around 2015, so it's probably a little dated, and it was in the National Association of Evangelicals. And he shared some stats that are pretty staggering that I want to share with you and your listeners, Anissa.
Absolutely.
30% of pastors are carrying student loan debt averaging $36,000. 29% of pastors have no retirement savings outside of Social Security. And I'll add one to that. Not so much in the New England region, but in the Southeast region of the country, there's a lot of pastors who have opted out of Social Security altogether. That puts them in an even more dangerous situation because they're not eligible for Medicare when they do that. And most of the time they did that when they were very young and didn't know that they opted out of Medicare.
Wow.
So, we help pastors with that as well, because there's things you can do around that to get yourself, even though you can't opt back in, you can still get the credits you need, the quarters you need to be eligible, and we help with that as well.
Tell us a little bit about the struggle with the finances in the church.
This is a thing with pastors, especially a lot of times when they're getting into ministry. A lot of them go to school, of course, and they get their doctorate degree. They spend a lot of money on school to really get trained up and taught. The challenge is, being a pastor oftentimes is one of the lowest paying professions in the United States. And not only that, a lot of pastors, they have to kind of go through their process of pastoring, right? So they come to a church. A lot of times they'll be like a youth minister, and they're earning maybe $35,000 a year. Yet they have all this debt that they're trying to sort out at the same time. They're essentially underpaid, and they also find it difficult to navigate compensation plans. Too often, money is a taboo subject in the church. In the secular world, you don't hesitate to negotiate your compensation,
yes,
before you go in. But as a pastor, you don't go into pastoring for money. But at the same time, your first ministry is your family. You need to be able to make sure you have something left for your family. And then they're also struggling with the lack of education around ministry and tax benefits, the financial side of ministry. And they don't know about the type of plan they should be saving in. I can't tell you how many pastors I meet saving in a IRA or a 401k plan. And like I said, there's a specific plan for ministry. It's called a 403b9 retirement plan. That plan is the one that gives them all the benefits that they want to make sure they are utilizing.
Yeah, awesome. I'm so glad this is like, pearls of wisdom. If you are tuning in right now to this broadcast, I'm speaking to Aston Blake. He is the owner of Fruit in its Season Wealth Management, and just talking about different statistics for pastors, how to put money away tax-free, and just giving us wealth of wisdom. Now, I know that you also work for individuals. What kind of financial advice can you give individuals who, want a retirement, who are in debt? Give us some advice for that.
One of the advice I give individuals, and I do also do financial education classes at churches, and the advice I give individuals is, for one, they need to have different buckets of money. So they shouldn't be saving for retirement in just one retirement vehicle. I'd say gone are the days when we only save in a 401k plan. I mean, when I was growing up, that was all I knew was a 401k plan. Everyone said, if you have a 401k at your job, put as much as you can in there. But now we have Roth IRA plans. There's ways to utilize life insurance as a vehicle. It's not an investment vehicle when it's life insurance, but you can produce income out of it, and that income is tax-free when it's in life insurance. Same thing with Roth IRAs. Roth IRAs, that comes back to you tax-free because you paid the taxes on the money already. So I teach them, let's have different buckets of money so you diversify your investments so that when you are in retirement, depending on what the tax rates are like, if tax rates are real high, then maybe you want to start withdrawing that from that bucket of money that's your Roth IRA and not from your 401k. So I just teach that. I also teach them about having a rainy day fund and how important that is, and not getting out over their skis with credit card debt, and options and ways they can get out of credit card debt if they're in that situation. There's ways to do things that often pastors don't know, and that's what we're here for. We teach and educate on that first and foremost.
Well, that's great. Any other details that you would like to convey to our listeners before we close the broadcast?
Yeah.
Anything particular that you'd like to discuss?
I'd just like to encourage leaders. If you're a leader in the church, maybe you're not the pastor, but maybe you're a board member in the church, or you're an elder at the church, you're part of the leadership team. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to be able to, set up time to come to your board meeting and provide some education. Maybe you're part of an association of pastors, and just to provide education. And maybe you're a young individual just getting started with a full-time job, and you want to make sure you're doing the right thing, or a married couple and you're thinking about buying a house, but you don't know if you can.
Yep.
A lot of married couples get themselves in situations because they buy a home too early.
Yep.
They may have the income to pay a mortgage, but they don't consider all of, the
Yes.
expenses that come with owning a home.
Yes.
And, and they don't have money set aside for those expenses, just enough to buy the home. And then it just spirals out of control from there. So I'd love to be able to help. You don't have to be in ministry to get my help. Sometimes people think that when they hear me talk just for people in ministry. That's not the case.
Once again on the broadcast with us was Aston Blake from Fruit in its Season Wealth Management. helping Christian retirement planning that specializes in helping pastors and church members retire with confidence. He also works with individuals and he loves to do seminars. For more details on today's broadcast, give us a call at 860-346-1049. I'm Anissa Porticelli for News and Public Affairs.